study? Because obviously I would have been doing some thinking, depending on which education I would be taking or what I would be using it for afterwards, or UK or maybe in my home country.
Okay, so anything you could do alongside your study while you're in Sheffield?
Well, that would be
help.
interesting.
Yeah.
And that has also the aspect of course employability is also something to do with the why I speak the language.
And brushing up on the language?
Well, that could be very interesting for many students.
Yeah. Okay, great. How about you two?
Well, we were thinking the same, so a job while you're studying here.
Yeah.
But in the Netherlands, I'm from the Netherlands, students from outside the EU would come in with a study visa, but then it's a bit more difficult to have a job because the employer needs to write or working permits. So it sometimes can be complicated. So I think it's necessary to know how you can work legally.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, great. Okay, so I don't think you were separate now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we decided almost the same. First, some courses for foreigners, for foreign students, in order to learn better English.
Okay, so more
Most
English.
important because when we are coming
How you can
without any knowledge of English, it will be difficult for them to communicate with the services.
Yeah.
Then part-time job, because mostly they are interested in this part-time job. And then about their career in the future.
So what they might do long term as well. Yeah. Any of the other pairs, did anyone else come up with anything different?
The things that popped into our heads first were maybe kind of the training how to do your CV in an attractive way and also your motivation letter, and maybe also to play an interview so that a young person who doesn't have any experience with interviews for a job can be prepared for like how he or she should behave, or what kind of questions might there be, what other things he or she needs to consider.
Okay, so it's the practical skills on how you get a job, the CVs, the interview preparation, interview practice.
Yes, it wasn't just about the future job, but also for if you want to enter a selected program, study program. So maybe keywords we can use in our CVs, resumes, to attract the attention of the selector.
I also work at the Career Center,
Okay.
so the main issue in Lithuania for international students is the language, because they have to know Lithuanian.
And so, okay, so a number of people have raised the issue of language, and that's not something we do specifically within the career service, but there is a lot of English support alongside that as well that people can access. But yeah, okay. Any other points? Okay, I think we've probably covered the main ones. So what I'll try and do as I go through is address how we meet those different demands that people have said. I also thought I'd throw it out just in case there was anything that we weren't covering, but I think we're covering all those things. So we have a quite an unusual setup here at Sheffield Hallam. When we started this about 5 years ago, most career services at universities tend to be a very centralised approach. So they'll have one careers office, and students from around the university will access that central point. We have what we call a hub and spoke model. So we do have the career centre that I showed you the photograph of just downstairs here, which anyone can access, and all students can come to that. But because we are a large university, we also have a devolved model. So we have an employability advisor, such as myself, working in every single department within the university. So my specific role is working with psychology, sociology and politics students who are based over at Collegiate Crescent. And my role with them is to do all these things. And it's very much around the sort of practical areas that people were mentioning earlier. So it is around job search, which could be permanent jobs for when people finish, but more often it's around part-time jobs and also volunteering. So the whole thing about gaining work experience alongside their programme of study. And I think it's important for all students, but it's even more important for international students than home students because it is so competitive. The graduate market, and particularly the way the restrictions are on international students, it's very, very difficult to get a job in the UK at the end if they haven't already built up links through volunteering, through part-time work, through placements, that sort of thing. Spend a lot of time looking at CVs and thinking about the sort of wording and stuff like that, and trying to get the wording in the presentation in such a way that it will impress employers. And we also do a lot around interview prep and practice. So we do run mock interviews for students, which I always find one of the most satisfying things, because normally we will run them a few days before students have their real interview, so we'll then get immediate feedback on whether the student has been successful. And it doesn't always happen, but we have a pretty good track record of when people have done the practice interview, then gaining success at the real interview. I'm sort of guessing that most of you are familiar with LinkedIn. Just have a quick show of hands, how many people are familiar with LinkedIn? Okay, so again, becoming increasingly important for undergraduates and graduates, so we spend a lot of time talking about that. And again, around postgrad courses, because it's not just about gaining work initially. A lot of people need to do more vocational courses or higher courses. So we do that. But like I say, we do all of that out in the department, and that has a lot of advantages. So the students, our own students, get to know us very well. The academic staff get to know us. We try and, because it is a large university and we're not going to see everyone on an individual basis, we try and get as much careers and employability input as we can into the curriculum, so we get good coverage. That is an uphill struggle, and I'm sure those of you working careers, you probably have similar issues about trying to get as much careers content as you would like in the curriculum. Because obviously if someone comes to study psychology, primarily they want to do psychology, or if it's history, primarily they want to do history. But we do want to try and get the stuff around CVs, around the job market, into the curriculum as much as possible. But that is an advantage, actually working in the department, and I think that's been sort of like one of the successes over the last 5 years. Someone mentioned about options when they finish, and a lot of our students, particularly the ones on the non-vocational courses, the ones on the vocational courses are generally, as you would imagine, have got a pretty good idea of what they want to do. So if they're doing a social work course, if they're doing electronic engineering, if they're doing something like that, nursing, then they've got a pretty good idea. Normally they will just follow on from the course. I've tended to work with the non-vocational courses, and by and large they struggle because there's so many things potentially that they could do. So we've got a team of careers consultants that will specifically work with people who don't know what they want to do. So they offer longer guidance sessions. Students can come back as many times as they want for help. We offer different forms of psychometric testing and all sorts of skills audits and interest guides that can help people in terms of thinking about what they want to do. We also run sessions, help I don't know what I want to do, for people who are completely clueless, which is unfortunately quite a lot of students. Students come because they want to study a particular subject and don't always have an idea of where they want to go. And like I say, it's hard for people on non-vocational courses. A lot of our stuff is online as well. I mean, obviously we do the face-to-face stuff that I've mentioned, and one-to-one stuff, the group work stuff. But we have a thing called UniHub, and this enables students to book to see us online. It enables people to look for vacancies online, so they can look for permanent vacancies, they can look for vacancies overseas, they can look for part-time vacancies, which again, sometimes overseas, sometimes in this country. We have a thing on there called Campus Jobs, which is working for the university. And the university does employ a lot of students, either on a sessional basis or for part-time jobs. And that's quite good because obviously it's a sympathetic employer, and it's a good way of helping people to develop their English within a work setting as opposed to on their course. So we do try, I mean, we promote all of the part-time jobs and the volunteering to international students, but I think campus jobs in particular can be really helpful for students just taking their first step into the labour market within this country. Students can also book onto a range of events on there, and I'll talk a bit more about events. I've got another slide on that. So, like I say, because it is a really large university, we have lots of students, we try and get as much of it online as possible, or the initial stuff online, so that when students come to see us, we can make it as high quality as possible. So the sorts of events we have, probably no different to what you have at home. So we have a range of recruitment fairs focusing on different aspects of the economy, some focusing on business, some focusing on science and engineering, and so on. We have a lot of employers coming in, particularly the big employers, but more and more we're getting small and medium-sized companies who are based locally in Sheffield. And Sheffield is becoming a very diverse economy. Traditionally, it was you probably heard this already, traditionally Sheffield was a steel town. But steel has contracted and employs fewer people now. Still produce a lot of steel, but the economy in Sheffield has become very diverse and has transformed in a very short period of time. So smaller companies are now much more important within Sheffield. But we have large national people. We have the likes of IBM. We have the large law firms. We have the NHS, etc., etc. So all the big employers come as well and talk to students. We do careers workshops on all of the things that we talked about earlier. I've just given a few examples there, but we have a program of probably about between 20 and 30 different aspects of careers and employability that any students can sign up for. And we have a number of volunteer fairs as well. And I keep banging on about this, but volunteer fairs for a lot of students, again, particularly international students, can be a really good first step in terms of going outside the university and starting to engage with other people, developing language, developing skills, etc. The other thing we have online is our Career Central website, which if you've got a chance, do have a look at. I don't know, is it possible to circulate this PowerPoint?
Yes, we will be.
Yeah,
Yeah, send it on there.
Great. So all sorts of things on here, all things that we've talked about already, but there's also a tab under the Planning Your Future, which is specifically aimed at international students. So things about getting a job in England, in the UK, things about what you need, like a national insurance number and that sort of thing, but also information about if you're returning to your own country or if you want to find work in another country. And in fact, on this tab, and you might want to have a look at this, there's a drop-down menu there, and a website called Going Global, which is helps people research countries all around the world. And you might want to have a look at your own country and see how accurate it is, because there's advice on the labour market in all different countries, the different formats for CVs, just different job search conventions in different countries. Haven't got every single country, it's got the bigger countries. So if you are from one of the smaller European countries, I think I saw on the list, someone from Lithuania? Yeah, I think Lithuania isn't on there, unfortunately, but the bigger countries are on there. But you might be interested to have a look at that, and obviously that's useful for home students who are looking to work overseas, as well as international students who are looking at other countries as well. As well as the generic sessions that are aimed at all students, we run sessions which are specifically targeted at international students. And it does cover some of the same material, but also focuses on, helps people to become acquainted with what is specific to the UK job market, how do they start to engage with that. Again, part of this is to help people think about what can they do while they're studying now. So all of the stuff that I've mentioned about part-time jobs, campus jobs, volunteering, because it is so difficult to get a permanent job at the end. We also offer a career mentoring scheme, which is open to all students, but again, we particularly encourage international students. And what this is, it's an opportunity for a student to pair up with a professional person for a year and have a minimum of 4 meetings in that time, normally in the employer's workplace, and it's a chance for them to get a really in-depth view of what a particular career is about and what a particular workplace and sector of the economy is like. And we find that students really benefit from this. They use it in all sorts of different ways. Sometimes it's about developing their network, sometimes it is about specific advice on what CV is like in that particular profession, and so on. And one of the awards this year was actually won by one of our international students, one of our Chinese students. And she not only won the award, but through her mentor, was lucky enough to sort out an internship in Shanghai when she finished her course. So the mentoring has all sorts of benefits. And like I say, it has benefits to home students, but a lot of benefits to international students as well, in terms of just gaining that sort of cultural awareness as well as the professional and employability awareness as well. Self-employment is becoming a bigger area for our graduates, a growing market. And so we have, as part of careers, we have an enterprise team. We'll support graduates for up to 5 years after finishing the term, like setting up their own business. We also have, there are specific Tier 1 visas, which we have the ability to award 10 Tier 1 visas to international students who want to set up their own business in the UK. We have other things, Hallam freelancers, which enable students to work self-employed whilst they're studying. We have a thing called the hatchery, which is business premises that students can use to set up their own business. So that's rent-free and have all of the facilities that you would need for using setting up your own business. But they've got the benefit of being alongside other people who are setting up their own business as well. So it's a real good opportunity for networking and sharing ideas. Have advisors that can help them. And we run a series of competitions and just things to generate ideas and get people enthusiastic about self-employment. So a range of different things really, which like I say, are for all students, but there are some specifics in there for international students. And then we have some other specific provision, which is just for international students. So we do a lot of link-ups with Andrew's team. So we go along to inductions for international students. We've had 2 what we've called afternoon tea events, and I realise that's living up to a bit of an English stereotype, but so we've had like tea and buns, and then brought a group of international students together, and then they've just had a chance to have talks from international students who've done particularly well. Either they've set up their own business, or they've, as they've gone through university, how they've accessed different opportunities. So they just had different talks about things, all things that we've talked about so far, input on the legal side, input about how the career service can help them, and so on. And tea and buns as well. And I went along to the first one, which was just before Christmas, and it was just a fantastic event, really, really good atmosphere, and I think students gained a lot from it, and certainly I gained a lot from it as well.
Excuse me, how many participants?
We've only done it twice. We did one at Christmas and one at Easter. The Christmas one, from memory, was about 45 students?
Yeah, about 50, I thought.
45, 50 students, something like that. It was held downstairs in the Careers Centre, and it was packed. That was as many as we could hold down there. I'm not sure how many attended the Easter one. I think it was sort of similar.
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
More than, it's like a huge lecture.
Yeah, it was, well, there were elements of it that were like a lecture, but it was small enough for people to ask questions. And then during the tea and bun event at the end, people could just talk on a one-to-one with people and just pick their brains through. So that was great. Yeah, we produce, or we tap into destination information about what's happening to international students and how many people are staying in this country and how many people are returning to their own country. And we're starting to, and this is an early stage, but we're starting to produce case studies and things that other students can then use to draw on the experience of what's made people successful in terms of employability. We also use WeChat. I don't know if people are familiar with WeChat, but this is a few people shaking their heads. So this is a social media site which is used a lot by Chinese students. So you know, in the same way that we'll use Facebook a lot to contact students, generally we've used WeChat to try and, as an additional way of trying to reach Chinese students. Do stuff on support for students seeking placements, because placements are absolutely key in terms of getting work, and I've already touched on a bit of support for students seeking work in their own country, and part of that is the Going Global, which I've put a link there too, but it's broader than that. And again, we've got a job of work. It's, you know, we've started in terms of like finding what people need when they go home, but you know, obviously every country is different and has its own quirks. So I suppose just to conclude then, what I've tried to give you an overview of everything we offer, and so international students tap into all of that, but in addition, you know, we've got a number of things which are very specific to international students as well. And I suppose it's recognising the fact that sometimes, not always, but sometimes international students may need a little bit more support or some kind of more specialist support. Okay, and so I know people have asked questions as we've gone through. Any other questions?
Do you
Yeah.
have some statistics about how many students will be helping this option to find a job in UK or Sheffield?
Right, how many students generally, or how many international
For
students?
1 year, international.
Oh, I haven't got that off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I will try and look that up. How, you here for the week?
Approximately. Sorry for the question.
That's a pressure.
That's a good question. I suppose it also partly depends on if you mean one-to-one support or group support, because obviously you see far more in groups than we do on one-to-one. It's a lot. It is a lot, but I don't think I could even. I'm not sure I could even hazard a guess. But we will certainly see the bulk of them in inductions, either in international inductions or general course inductions, and then through the group sessions that we offer. But and I know when I've run central group sessions here, international students are always very, very well represented. And in fact, when I've done duty in the office downstairs, again, international students are always well represented. So typically on a day's duty, if I'm seeing 8 appointments here, probably a quarter of them on average will be international students. But I still wouldn't want to do the maths and give you a figure. But it's a lot. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for this overview. It was really interesting. I have a couple of questions actually. First of all, you mentioned that you try to put all this training and those practical tips into the curriculum. How do you do that?
Yeah, with difficulty, and some departments are much more up for it than others. So, for example, the law department is really good in terms of what they have in terms of employability. I used to work with history students and history lecturers. Keep your voice down because they work on this corridor and just